The conference chamber stretched for nearly a kilometer in every direction. Captain Arya Walsh had seen photographs, had studied the layout, had prepared herself mentally for this moment. None of it helped. 3,000 alien species filled the tiered seating that rose like an amphitheater around the central floor. The air shimmered with translation fields, carrying whispers in languages that human ears were never meant to hear. Holographic displays showed star maps spanning the entire galaxy, with Earth appearing as nothing more than a tiny blue dot in an overlooked spiral arm. Arya stood in the center of it all, flanked by her two companions. To her left stood Ambassador Marcus Webb, a man whose face showed every one of his 60 years. To her right, Dr. Helena Cross adjusted her datapad with trembling fingers. Above them, suspended in the air by some technology Arya could not identify, sat the 9 arbiters. Each represented a different fundamental form of consciousness, energy beings, hive minds, crystalline intelligences, and others that defied easy classification. The largest of them, a creature that seemed to be made of living metal, spoke first. Its voice resonated through the chamber without the need for translation. Humanity. You stand before the Galactic Council to answer for your defiance. For 6 standard cycles, you have ignored our summons. For 500 years before that, you have maintained a presence that violates the most sacred principle of this body. Today you will explain why Earth's seat remains empty. Arya felt her heart hammering in her chest. She had been a diplomat for 15 years, had negotiated trade agreements with a dozen species, but nothing had prepared her for this. The weight of 3,000 civilizations. Watching her every move pressed down like a physical force, Marcus stepped forward, with the confidence of a man who had nothing left to lose. We are here to answer your questions, honored arbiters. But first we have one of our own. Why does Earth's seat exist at all if we are forbidden from occupying it? The chamber erupted. Delegates rose from their seats, shouting in outrage. Some demanded the humans be ejected immediately. Others called for harsher measures. But Arya noticed something strange. Not a single species moved closer to where they stood. Every delegate maintained a careful distance. As if an invisible barrier surrounded the human delegation, the metal arbiter raised one massive appendage and silence fell. You dare question this council? We dare to understand it, Marcus replied calmly. You summoned us here. You demanded answers. But you won't tell us what question we're actually answering. For a long moment no one spoke. Then the arbiter gestured toward something behind Arya. She turned and saw it for the first time. Earth's seat. It sat alone in a section of the chamber that should have held dozens of delegates. Energy barriers surrounded it on all sides, pulsing with warnings in every known language. The chair itself looked ordinary, almost human in design, but it was covered in symbols that made Arya's eyes hurt to look at them directly. That seat, the arbiter said slowly, is the reason we summoned you. It has been empty for 5 centuries. It must remain empty. Yet your species continues to send representatives to this council, continues to participate in galactic affairs, continues to exist in a state that should not be possible. You are neither members nor outsiders. Neither trusted nor expelled. This ambiguity cannot continue. Dr. Cross activated her datapad, projecting a hologram above their heads. It showed historical records, diplomatic logs, fragments of ancient testimony. 3 weeks ago, Helena began, her voice steadier than Arya expected. I was ordered by Earth's government to investigate why our seat remains empty. What I found terrified me. The hologram shifted, showing an image of a human woman in formal dress. She looked confident, almost defiant. 500 years ago, Ambassador Victoria Kane became Earth's first representative to this council. She attended one session. Only one. What happened in that session was classified at the highest level by every species present. But the results speak for themselves. The hologram changed again, showing the same chamber they now stood in, but filled with chaos. Delegates fighting, systems failing, ships evacuating. Within 3 hours of Kane taking Earth's seat, the Galactic Council collapsed. Treaties were broken. Alliances shattered. Secrets that had been hidden for millennia came spilling out into the open, and every species in this chamber turned on her with a hatred they could not explain or control. Arya stared at the hologram, unable to process what she was seeing. What did she do? She asked questions, Marcus said quietly. Simple questions. Honest questions. And somehow, those questions made it impossible for anyone in the room to lie. The metal arbiter's form flickered as if the memory itself caused it pain. Ambassador Kane nearly died that day. We do not know how she survived long enough to reach her ship. What we do know is that her presence triggered something in every species present. A response so primal, so overwhelming, that it overrode millions of years of civilized behavior. We wanted to hunt her. To chase her. To destroy her. Why? Arya demanded. Because humans are predators, the Arbiter said simply. And every species in this galaxy evolved from prey. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Arya looked around the chamber and finally understood what she was seeing. The careful distance. The nervous movements. The way entire sections of seating had been evacuated before they arrived. The galaxy was afraid of them. Marcus walked toward the empty seat, stopping just outside the barrier. So you keep this seat here as a reminder. Not of what we did, but of what we are. We keep it as a warning, the Arbiter corrected. Earth's seat remains empty because it must. Because if a human were to sit here, to truly take their place among us, the same thing would happen again. The unraveling, the collapse, the chaos. Then why summon us at all? Helena asked. The Arbiter was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice carried something that might have been fear. Because despite everything, we need you. We need what you see that we cannot. We need the questions you ask that we are too afraid to speak. We need predators on the council. We simply do not know how to let you in without destroying ourselves. Arya felt the weight of that statement settle over her. They had come here expecting judgment, expecting confrontation. Instead, they had found something far more complicated. Earth's seat was not a punishment. It was a prison. And humanity was both the prisoner and the guard. There has to be another way, she said. If there is, the Arbiter replied, you have 3 months to find it. Otherwise, the Council will vote to expel humanity from civilized space entirely. Better to lose your contributions than risk another unraveling. The chamber began to empty, delegates fleeing as quickly as protocol allowed. Within minutes, only the human delegation and the 9 arbiters remained. Marcus turned to Arya, his expression grim. Now you know why they sent us. Why they always send diplomats who don't know the full truth. Because if you had known what we were walking into, you would never have agreed to come. Arya looked at Earth's empty seat, at the warnings that covered it, at the barriers designed to keep humans away from their own place in galactic government. What happened to Ambassador Kane? She asked. After she escaped? Marcus and Helena exchanged a glance. That, Marcus said, is what we need to find out. Because somewhere in her story is the answer to how humanity survives this. And we have 3 months to discover it. As they left the chamber, Arya took one last look at the seat. It sat there in the darkness, empty and waiting, a symbol of everything humanity could be and everything the galaxy feared they might become. The real question, she realized, was not why the seat was empty. It was what would happen when someone finally sat down. The research facility floated in the void between star systems, hidden from casual observation by gravitational lensing. Arya had never seen anything like it. The structure twisted in ways that seemed to defy physics, its corridors bending through dimensions she could not name. Marcus led them through halls that felt older than they should be. The walls were covered in data streams, showing records that flickered between languages faster than Arya could follow. Some of the text was human. Most was not. This is Archive Station Omega, Helena explained as they walked. Built by the Council 200 years ago to study what they call the Forbidden Events. Everything that happened during Victoria Kane's session is stored here. Why bring us here? Arya asked. The arbiters made their position clear. We have 3 months to find a solution or face expulsion. Because the arbiters lied, Marcus said flatly. Not deliberately. They simply do not remember the full truth. What happened 500 years ago was so traumatic that most species have blocked it out. The official records have been edited, sanitized, made safe for public consumption. But the raw data is here. They entered a chamber at the heart of the station. Holographic projectors covered every surface, currently dark and waiting. Helena approached a central console and began entering commands. What you are about to see, she said carefully, has been classified by unanimous vote of all 3,000 council species. The penalty for unauthorized viewing is immediate memory wipe followed by permanent exile. You brought me here to commit a galactic crime? Arya said. We brought you here because you need to understand what we are, Marcus replied. And why the galaxy will never let us take our seat. The holograms activated. The chamber disappeared, replaced by a perfect recreation of the council 500 years ago. Arya found herself standing in the middle of history. Ambassador Victoria Kane sat in Earth's seat, looking remarkably calm for someone surrounded by 3,000 alien species. She was younger than Arya expected, perhaps 40, with dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her eyes moved constantly, tracking movement, assessing threats, calculating angles. Like a predator watching prey, the session began normally enough. Trade agreements were discussed. Border disputes were mediated. The galaxy conducted its business with the smooth efficiency of millennia of practice. Then Kane raised her hand. I have a question, she said. Her voice was pleasant, almost casual. Why did you really invite humanity to join the council? The chamber fell silent. It was, Arya thought, a reasonable question. An obvious question. The kind any new species might ask, but something about how Kane said it, the exact tone and timing, made every delegate in the chamber suddenly uncomfortable. A crystalline being from the outer rim spoke first, its voice cracking with strain. We invited you because your technological development suggested you would be valuable members. That is not entirely true, another delegate said suddenly, as if the words were being pulled from it against its will. We invited you because we wanted access to your solar system's resources. We plan to offer membership, then gradually strip mine your system over the next 1,000 years. The chamber erupted in shock. The crystalline being turned on the speaker, demanding to know why it had revealed classified strategic plans. Kane simply watched, her expression unchanged. Interesting, she said. Anyone else want to share their real reasons? And then it started. One by one, delegates began confessing. Secret alliances. Hidden weapons programs. Plans to manipulate smaller species. Schemes that had been buried for centuries came spilling out into the open. Arya watched in horror as the most sophisticated political body in the galaxy tore itself apart. Delegates attacked each other, both verbally and physically. Ships in orbit began powering weapons. The entire structure of galactic civilization began to crack. What is she doing? Arya whispered. She is not doing anything, Marcus said. That is what makes it so terrifying. Helena froze the hologram, zooming in on Kane's face. Watch her eyes. See how they move. She is reading micro-expressions, body language, vocal stress patterns, every tiny signal that indicates deception or hidden intent. Every predator does this, Marcus added. Wolves read their prey. Hawks read rabbits. Humans read everything. We evolved to hunt the most dangerous prey on Earth, other apex predators. Animals that could think, that could plan, that could hide. We developed the ability to see through deception because our survival depended on it. The hologram resumed. 3 hours into the session, Kane stood to leave. The chaos around her had reached critical levels. She walked calmly toward the exit, and that was when everything changed. Every species in the chamber turned to look at her. Their expressions shifted from anger and fear to something far more primal. Arya recognized it from nature documentaries, the look a lion gets when it spots wounded prey. They wanted to hunt her, not from malice, not from anger, but from some instinct buried so deep in their evolution that conscious thought could not override it. Kane ran. Delegates chased her through the corridors, driven by a compulsion they could not name or control. She made it to her ship through a combination of luck and skill that Arya could barely follow. The moment Kane left the station, the hunting instinct vanished. Delegates stopped running, confused and horrified by their own actions. The hologram ended. Arya stood in the sudden darkness, trying to process what she had witnessed. "That is why Earth's seat is empty," Helena said quietly. "Not because we did something wrong, but because our presence triggers a response in prey species that they cannot control. We make them uncomfortable. We make them confess. And then we make them want to destroy us. How is that possible?" Arya demanded. "We did not evolve in this galaxy. We did not evolve alongside these species. Why would they have an instinctive response to us?" Marcus activated another hologram. This one showed genetic data, evolutionary trees, biological analysis that Arya could barely understand. "Because humans are not unique," he said. "We are just the latest." The data shifted, showing species after species throughout galactic history. Each had forward-facing eyes. Each had persistence metabolism. Each had evolved as predators rather than prey. "Every 100,000 years," Helena explained, "a new predator species reaches spacefaring capability. They join the Council. They help guide civilization through crises. And then they disappear. Disappear how? We do not know. The records are incomplete. But we know that before humans, there was a species called the Architects. They sat at council for 3,000 years. They were trusted advisors, strategic planners, crisis managers. And then, 50,000 years ago, they vanished. Every single one of them, gone in a single night." Marcus pointed to Earth's seat in the historical hologram. "That was their chair? We inherited it when we joined the council. But we also inherited their curse." "What curse?" "Dependence," Helena said. "The galaxy became so reliant on the Architects that when they vanished, civilization nearly collapsed. Wars broke out. Alliances shattered. It took 10,000 years to rebuild. And when humanity arrived, showing all the same predatory traits, the galaxy panicked." Arya understood now. "They keep Earth's seat empty to prevent dependence. To keep us at arm's length. To make sure that if we disappear like the Architects, civilization can survive without us." "Correct," Marcus said. "But there is a problem. The galaxy still needs predators. They need our ability to see threats, to make hard decisions, to ask the questions others are too afraid to speak. They need us on the council. They just do not know how to let us in without risking everything. So what do? Helena deactivated the holograms. "We do what humans have always done. We find a way to survive. We have 3 months to prove that humanity can take its seat without triggering another unraveling. 3 months to show the galaxy that predators and prey can coexist. And if we fail?" Marcus met her gaze steadily. "Then Earth becomes the first species in galactic history to be forcibly expelled from civilized space. Our ships will be banned from every major trade route. Our colonies will be quarantined. And humanity will spend the next 1,000 years isolated and alone, wondering what we might have become." Arya looked at the empty space where the hologram had been, where Victoria Kane had stood 500 years ago, asking the question that changed everything. "Where is Kane now?" she asked. If she survived that day, she might know something we do not. Marcus and Helena exchanged another look, this one carrying a weight Arya could not identify. "That," Marcus said slowly, "is why we came here. Because according to the classified records, Victoria Kane never made it back to Earth? She died? No, she disappeared. Just like the Architects. And if we want to save humanity, we need to find out where she went." The trail led them to a moon orbiting a gas giant in unclaimed space. According to the fragments Helena had recovered from the archives, Victoria Kane had sent one final encrypted message from this location before going silent. The message contained only coordinates in a single word: truth. Their ship descended through clouds of frozen methane toward a structure that should not exist. It was ancient, built from materials that predated most galactic civilizations. Yet sensors indicated it was still active, still waiting. "This is an architect facility," Helena breathed as they approached. "I have seen images in archaeological records, but no one has found an intact site in over 20,000 years." The structure opened as they drew near, as if it had been expecting them. Marcus piloted their ship into a hangar that could have held a vessel 100 times their size. The moment they landed, lighting systems activated throughout the facility. Someone had been maintaining this place. They found Victoria Kane in what appeared to be a research laboratory. She sat at a desk covered in data pads and holographic displays, looking exactly as she had 500 years ago. Not aged, not changed. "Simply waiting, Ambassador Kane?" Arya said carefully, her hand moving toward her weapon. The woman looked up and smiled. It was not a threatening expression, but something about it made Arya's instincts scream danger. "Captain Walsh, I wondered when you would arrive, though I expected it to take longer than 500 years. Kane's voice carried the same pleasant tone from the historical recordings. "Please sit. We have much to discuss and not very much time." "You have been here for 5 centuries? Marcus demanded. "Living alone in an abandoned facility?" "Not abandoned, occupied and not alone." Kane gestured to the chamber around them. "The architects never left, you see. They simply changed, evolved, became something that could not be hunted, could not be feared, could not trigger the predator response." Helena moved deeper into the laboratory, examining the displays. Her face went pale as she read the data. "These are genetic modification protocols. Extremely advanced. They show how to alter human DNA at the most fundamental level. The architects discovered the truth about our kind," Kane explained. "We are not natural evolutionary products. We are engineered, created every 100,000 years. Somewhere in the galaxy, a species evolves with predatory traits that perfectly trigger the prey response in all other sentient life. We are weapons shaped by forces we do not understand, designed to guide and guard civilizations." Arya felt the ground shift beneath her understanding of reality. "Why? Who would do that?" "That question," Kane said, "is why I have been here for 500 years. Searching for answers. The architects left extensive records. They spent 3,000 years investigating their own origins. What they found terrified them enough to abandon everything they were." Marcus picked up one of the data pads, scrolling through information that made his hands shake. "This says the predator species are created as crisis response systems. When galactic civilization faces extinction-level threats, we appear to guide them through. We make the hard decisions. We see the threats others miss. We do what needs to be done." "Correct," Kane confirmed. "The galaxy has faced 5 major extinction events in the last 1,000,000 years. Each time, a predator species was present to navigate the crisis. Each time, they succeeded. And each time, shortly after the crisis ended, they vanished. Because the galaxy could not tolerate them anymore," Helena said, understanding flooding her voice. "Once the threat passed, the prey species reverted to their natural state. And their natural state is to be terrified of predators." Kane nodded. The architects realized they had a choice. They could continue to serve, knowing they would eventually be destroyed or expelled. Or they could transform themselves into something the galaxy could accept. She activated a central hologram showing the complex biological data. They developed a process to remove the predatory traits while keeping the strategic intelligence. They became integrated into other species, spreading their genetics across the galaxy. Today, 1 in every 1,000,000 individuals carries dormant architect genes. They look like their host species, think like their host species, but retain the ability to see through deception and make hard choices. That is why the Arbiters sometimes make decisions that seem too ruthless, Marcus said slowly. They are being influenced by architect descendants. More than influenced, guided, the architects did not disappear. They became the invisible hand that steers galactic civilization from within. Kane stood, walking to a viewport that showed the swirling gas giant beyond. But their solution came with a cost. By integrating so completely, they lost their identity. They ceased to exist as a distinct species. They saved the galaxy by erasing themselves. Arya felt sick. And you came here to learn how to do the same to humanity. I came here to learn if there was another way, Kane corrected. The architects left all their research, all their protocols, all their knowledge. They wanted the next predator species to have options they did not. But after 500 years of study, I have found only 3 paths. She brought up 3 holographic displays, each showing a different future. Path 1. Humanity takes its seat at the council and triggers another unraveling. Civilization collapses. Billions die. We become the monsters the galaxy fears we are. The hologram shifted. Path 2. Humanity follows the architects. We transform ourselves genetically, integrate into other species, disappear as a distinct people. We save the galaxy but lose ourselves entirely. The hologram shifted again. Path 3. We refuse both options. We maintain our distance, keep Earth's seat empty, and wait for the next crisis. When it comes, and it will come, we step forward as we always have. We save civilization, and then we accept whatever fate the grateful but terrified galaxy decides for us. Those options are all terrible, Arya said. Yes, Kane agreed. Which is why I called you here. Because you, Captain Walsh, asked a question I never thought to ask. What question? At the Council Tribunal, you suggested a middle path. Integration without dependence. Presence without dominance. It should not be possible, but the fact that you even conceived of it means something has changed. Humanity has evolved in ways the architects did not. We have something they lacked. What? Kane smiled again, and this time it reached her eyes. Stubbornness, creativity, the sheer bloody-minded refusal to accept that there are only 3 options. The architects were brilliant, but they were also logical. When they saw no solution, they assumed none existed. Humans are less logical. We keep searching even when reason says to stop. Marcus set down the datapad. So you stayed here, guarding this knowledge, waiting for someone who might find a 4th path? I stayed here because someone had to. Because the next crisis is coming, Captain Walsh, sooner than anyone realizes. And when it arrives, humanity will need to make a choice. We will need to take our seat at the council, or the galaxy will not survive what is coming. What crisis? Helena demanded. Kane brought up a new display, showing sensor data from across the galaxy. Arya had seen similar patterns before, but never on this scale. The same crisis that has struck 5 times before. The same threat that requires predators to defeat. They call it different names in different eras, but the result is always the same: extinction. The hologram showed systems going dark. Entire civilizations vanishing. A wave of destruction spreading from the edge of the galaxy inward. It started 6 months ago, Kane said quietly. The Council does not know yet. They are too focused on internal politics, on the question of Earth's seat, to notice the pattern. But within a year, they will face the reality. And they will need us. Arya stared at the data, her mind racing. How long do we have? To find a solution? 3 months, just as the Arbiter said? To prepare for the crisis? Perhaps 2 years. No more, that is not enough time. It never is, Kane replied. But it is what we have. The question is not whether humanity will take its seat at the Council. The question is whether we can do so without destroying everything we are trying to save. Marcus turned to Arya. You are the mission leader. What do we do? Arya looked at the 3 terrible options displayed before her, then at the data showing approaching doom. She thought about 3,000 species maintained their careful distance from humans. She thought about the empty seat, covered in warnings, protected by barriers, and she thought about Victoria Kane, who had sat alone for 500 years, refusing to give up, still searching for an answer. We do what humans do best, Arya said finally. We improvise. We adapt. We find the 4th path that everyone says does not exist. How? Helena asked. I do not know yet. But we have allies we have not considered. The architect descendants are still out there, hidden throughout the galaxy. If we can find them, convince them to help us, we might be able to create something new. A way for predators and prey to coexist. Kane studied her for a long moment, then nodded. The Arbiters will not like what you are suggesting. Revealing the architect descendants would expose secrets that have been kept for 50,000 years. Good, Arya said. Because the first step to solving this problem is making sure everyone knows the truth. No more secrets. No more hidden manipulations. If humanity is going to take its seat at the council, we are going to do it honestly. Marcus laughed, a sound without humor. You wanted to trigger the unraveling deliberately. I want to control it, Arya corrected. Kane proved that human honesty breaks down lies. Fine, let it. But this time, we do it methodically, carefully, with full knowledge of what is happening. We turn our greatest weakness into our greatest strength. For the first time in 500 years, Victoria Kane looked genuinely surprised. That might actually work. Or it might destroy everything, Helena added. True, Arya agreed. But destruction is coming anyway. At least this way, we face it together. They returned to the council with Victoria Kane at their side. Her appearance caused immediate chaos. Half the delegates believed she was dead. The other half wished she were. Security forces surrounded them the moment they entered the Grand Chamber. This woman is classified as a galactic security threat, the Metal Arbiter declared. She's forbidden from entering council space under penalty of immediate termination. Then you will have to terminate all of us, Arya said calmly. Because what she knows, we now know. And what we know, the galaxy needs to hear. Before the Arbiter could respond, alarms began screaming throughout the station. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing something that made every delegate in the chamber freeze. A fleet had entered the system. Not just any fleet. 417 warships representing the Coalition for Galactic Purity. A group that had spent the last month gathering support for humanity's forced removal from civilized space. This is Admiral Kreth of the Vorlian Empire. A voice boomed through the communication systems. We are here to resolve the human question permanently. Surrender the Earth delegation, or we will consider all council members complicit in harboring a galactic threat. Marcus moved to a communication console. This is Ambassador Webb. Admiral, you do not understand what you are doing. I understand perfectly, Kreth replied. Humanity is a predator species. History shows that such species eventually turn on their prey. We will not wait for that day. We will eliminate the threat now? Then you doom the galaxy, Kane said, her voice cutting through the chaos. She activated her own holographic display, showing the sensor data from the Architect facility. Look at Sector 17. Look at what is happening on the rim. The display showed entire star systems going silent. Not destroyed. Simply ceasing to transmit. As if something was consuming them from the edges of known space inward. We have seen your manipulated data, Kreth said dismissively. It proves nothing. It proves everything, Helena interrupted. She had been working frantically at a secondary console. I have just accessed the Council's deep space monitoring network. Cross-reference sensor logs from the past 6 months. The pattern is there. New data flooded the displays. Slowly, inevitably, the truth became visible. Something was spreading through the galaxy, and it was accelerating. The chamber fell silent as 3,000 species realized they were looking at an extinction event. This is the crisis, Kane said quietly. This is why predator species exist. Every 100,000 years, this same force emerges from dark space. It consumes civilizations, absorbs technology, grows stronger with each world it takes. The prey species of the Council cannot fight it. They do not think in the ruthless terms required. They cannot make the calculations necessary for survival. That is why you need us, Arya continued. Not because we are better, but because we are willing to do what you cannot. We will sacrifice colonies to save civilizations. We will make the terrible choices. We will be the monsters you need us to be. And after? The Arbiter asked. After this crisis passes, what happens to the monsters then? Marcus stepped forward. That is the real question, is it not? It has been the question for 1,000,000 years. How does the galaxy coexist with predators after the prey no longer needs them? He activated another display, this one showing genetic data. Ambassador Kane discovered that the architects solved this problem by erasing themselves. They integrated so completely into other species that they ceased to exist. Is that what you want from us? Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some delegates nodded. Others looked horrified at the suggestion. Or, Arya said, we try something new. Something the architects never attempted. We acknowledge the truth openly. We establish protocols. We limit how long humans can serve on the council. We rotate leadership. We create checks and balances. We find a way for predators and prey to govern together, not by hiding what we are, but by accepting it. Impossible, Kreth said. The prey response is biological, instinctive. It cannot be overridden. It can be managed, Kane replied. The architects prove that. Their descendants live among you now, hidden but present. They carry predatory genetics, yet you do not hunt them. You do not fear them. Because they have integrated carefully, slowly, with full awareness of the risks. You speak of the Ghost Protocol, the Arbiter said slowly. The rumors that some among us carry ancient bloodlines. Not rumors, fact. 1 in every 1,000,000 individuals across the galaxy carries dormant architect genes. They are your advisors, your strategists, your crisis managers. They guide you through difficulties using instincts you do not possess. And you never knew. The revelation sent shockwaves through the chamber. Delegates began looking at each other with suspicion. Some demanded immediate genetic testing. Others simply sat in stunned silence. Admiral Kreth's voice cut through the chaos. This changes nothing. Ghost protocols or not, humanity is different. More dangerous. More concentrated. You trigger our instincts in ways the hidden architects do not. Because we are honest about what we are, Marcus said. Because we do not hide. That is the real difference. The architects chose invisibility. We choose transparency. And you expect us to simply accept predators in our midst? Kreth demanded. No, Arya said. We expect you to make a choice. Face the extinction event alone and fail, as you have 4 times before. Or accept our help and survive, knowing that afterward we will need to find a way to coexist. There is no third option, Kane added. The crisis will reach Council space in 18 months. After that, every world inside the galactic core will be at risk. You need predators. You have always needed predators. The question is whether you can accept that need long enough to survive. The metal arbiter was silent for a long time. Finally it spoke. If we allow humanity to take its seat, if we accept your help with this crisis, what guarantee do we have that you will not turn on us afterward? None, Marcus said bluntly. Just as we have no guarantee that you will not hunt us the moment the crisis ends. This requires trust. Mutual, terrifying, completely illogical trust. That is not how galactic politics works, Kreth said. Then galactic politics needs to change? Arya replied. Because the old system is about to be tested in ways it was never designed to handle. Suddenly the station shuddered. Alarms screamed. On the displays, Kreth's fleet had opened fire, not on the council station, but on something else. Something that had emerged from dark space at the edge of the system. The entity was massive, composed of technology that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. It absorbed Kreth's attacks without slowing, converting the energy into more of itself. Within seconds, 3 of his warships simply ceased to exist, consumed and integrated into the growing mass. Pull back, Arya ordered. Admiral, retreat now. I will not flee from... Kreth's transmission cut off as his flagship was engulfed. When it emerged seconds later, it was no longer his. The ship turned its weapons on the rest of the fleet. This is what you are facing, Kane said, her voice cutting through the screaming alarms. This is what wipes out civilizations. It learns, it adapts. It turns your own technology against you, and it will not stop until it has consumed everything. What do we do? The Arbiter asked, and for the first time, Arya heard genuine fear in its voice. Victoria Kane walked toward Earth's empty seat. She stopped at the barrier, looking at the warnings that had kept humans away for 5 centuries. You drop the barriers, she said simply. You let humanity take its seat, and you pray that we are enough. The Arbiter made a gesture. The energy barriers around Earth's seat flickered and died. The warnings faded. For the first time in 500 years, the chair sat unprotected. Kane did not sit. Instead, she turned to Arya. This is not my time anymore, she said quietly. I have been preparing for this moment for 5 centuries. But the future belongs to your generation. You are the ones who must decide what humanity becomes. Arya looked at the seat, at the 3,000 species watching her, at the entity consuming ships on the displays. She thought about the terrible choice the architects had made. She thought about the empty seat, maintained for half a millennium as a symbol of fear, and she thought about what Marcus had said. This required trust. She walked to the seat and sat down. The chamber exploded with activity. Some delegates fled. Others moved toward her with expressions of barely controlled aggression. The prey response triggered exactly as predicted, but this time, something different happened. Throughout the chamber, individuals began to glow with a faint light. 1 in every 1,000 delegates, scattered across every species, suddenly visible. The hidden architect descendants, revealing themselves for the first time in 50,000 years. They did not attack. They did not defend. They simply stood, creating a living network throughout the chamber. Their presence a reminder that predators and prey had been coexisting all along. The galaxy just had not known it. We are here, one of them said, a being that looked entirely like its prey species host. We have always been here, and we are not what you fear. Slowly, impossibly, the hunting instinct began to fade. The delegates who had moved toward Arya stopped, confused by their own actions. The ancient fear remained, but something else emerged alongside it. Understanding. Now, Arya said from Earth's seat, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Let us save the galaxy together. The War Council assembled within hours. Arya remained in Earth's seat, though the council had moved to a secure location deep within their central station. Around her, representatives from every major species gathered, along with the newly revealed architect descendants who had hidden among them for millennia, the entity from dark space. Designated as the Devourer by ancient records, had consumed 40% of Admiral Kreth's fleet before the survivors managed to retreat. Analysis showed it was growing exponentially, learning from each ship it absorbed, becoming more efficient with every attack. We have 18 months before it reaches the core systems, Helena reported, her displays showing projected paths of destruction. Based on historical patterns, it will target high-population worlds first, maximizing resource acquisition. How do we stop it? The Metal Arbiter asked. The question was directed at Arya. She felt the weight of 3,000 civilizations watching her. The prey response still flickered at the edges of consciousness, delegates maintaining careful distance, but they were listening. That was progress. We do not stop it, Arya said. We redirect it. Marcus brought up tactical displays. The Devourer is not alive in any traditional sense. It is an automated system, programmed to consume and grow, but it has priorities. It targets technology, biological diversity, and complex social structures. Those are its food sources. You want to starve it? Asked one of the architect descendants, a being that Apia read to be a standard Tolvari, but whose eyes carried the predator's focus. We want to give it something more appealing to eat, Victoria Kane said. She had taken a position near Arya, not as a representative, but as an advisor. The architects faced this entity 3 times during their tenure. They never defeated it. They only survived by sacrificing enough to satisfy its hunger. But humanity has an advantage they did not. What advantage? The Arbiter demanded. We understand bait, Marcus said simply. Over the next 6 hours, the plan took shape. It was brutal. It was calculated. It was everything the prey species of the Council could never have conceived on their own. They would create false targets, entire artificial star systems, filled with technology and energy signatures that would appear more valuable than natural civilizations. The Devourer would consume these first, buying time to evacuate real populations from its path, but the decoys would be more than simple bait. They would be traps. Each artificial system would contain carefully designed flaws, pieces of corrupted code, and unstable technology that would integrate into the Devourer's structure. Not enough to destroy it immediately, but enough to slow it down, to make it less efficient, to eventually cause it to collapse under its own growing complexity. This will require resources from every major species, Helena explained. Ships, materials, entire planetary economies devoted to construction. We are talking about the largest coordinated effort in galactic history. And the sacrifices? The Arbiter asked quietly. Your plan requires time purchased with colonies on the rim. You are asking us to abandon them. Arya met the Arbiter's gaze steadily. Yes, we evacuate who we can, we save what we can. But we cannot save everything. That is the calculation predators make. That is why you need us here. The chamber was silent. This was the moment. The choice between the comforting lie that everyone could be saved and the brutal truth that survival required sacrifice. One by one, species voted, some with anger, some with tears. But they voted, the motion passed. For the first time in galactic history, 3,000 species placed their fate in the hands of predators. The next year was a blur of activity. Arya coordinated evacuation efforts while Marcus managed the military response. Kane and Helena worked with the architect descendants to design the trap systems. Combining human ingenuity with ancient knowledge, the casualties were staggering. 17 rim colonies were lost before evacuation could be completed. Hundreds of thousands died. Each death was recorded, each name entered into a memorial that stretched for kilometers in virtual space, but billions were saved. The artificial systems, built with desperate speed, began attracting the Devourer's attention. It consumed them eagerly, its growth accelerating. For 3 months, it seemed the plan had failed. The entity was becoming more powerful, not weaker. Then the corruption began to show. The Devourer's movements became erratic. It started consuming systems inefficiently, leaving resources behind. Its attacks became predictable. The integrated code flaws were spreading through its structure like a virus. It is working, Helena announced during one of the daily briefings. But slowly. We still need more time. Time we do not have, the Arbiter replied. The Devourer had changed course. Heading directly for the Council's capital world, Arya made the decision without consulting anyone. Evacuate the capital, everyone. Now. The capital has stood for 50,000 years, the Arbiter protested. It is a symbol of galactic unity. And it will be a memorial if you do not evacuate, Arya said coldly. Symbols can be rebuilt. People cannot. The evacuation took 2 weeks. The Devourer arrived on schedule, consuming the ancient station and everything within. But it found no population to integrate, no civilization to absorb. Only empty structures and one final trap. The capital station had been rigged with a cascade overload. Every system, every power source, every piece of technology designed to feed back on itself simultaneously. When the Devourer absorbed it, the conflicting code created a chain reaction within its structure. The entity began to collapse. It did not happen quickly. For another 6 months, the Devourer consumed systems, trying to repair itself, growing more erratic with each absorption. But the damage was irreversible. Eventually, it fragmented into thousands of pieces, each one consuming the others, until nothing remained but debris floating in dark space. The galaxy had survived. The cost became clear in the aftermath. 24 colonies lost. The capital destroyed. Hundreds of thousands dead. Resources exhausted. Every major species economy damaged. But 3,000 civilizations remained. The Council reconvened in a temporary station, smaller and less grand than its predecessor. Earth's seat was installed immediately, without barriers, without warnings. Arya sat in it by right, no longer as a guest or prisoner, but as a representative, the changes came gradually. Humanity was granted full council membership, but with conditions. Human representatives could serve no more than 5 years consecutively. Every human delegation required at least 2 non-predator species as advisors. Regular psychological evaluations for all parties to monitor the prey response. The architect. Descendants emerged fully from hiding, taking positions as mediators between humanity and the rest of the council. Their existence proved that integration was possible, that predators could live among prey without constant conflict, but the relationship remained complicated. Some species never stopped maintaining their distance. Others welcomed human insight into threats and problems. A few tried to manipulate humanity's predatory instincts for political gain, which ended poorly for everyone involved. Victoria Kane returned to her facility, satisfied that her 500-year vigil had ended successfully. Before she left, she spoke privately with Arya. "You found the fourth path," Kane said. "Not perfect integration like the architects, not isolation like Earth's old status, but something new, conditional cooperation. Mutual wariness combined with mutual need." "It does not feel like victory," Arya admitted. "We saved the galaxy and half of them still flinch when we enter a room." "That is the price of being predators," Kane replied. "We will never be loved. We will never be fully trusted. But we will be needed, and perhaps that is enough." 3. Years after the crisis ended, Arya's term as Earth's representative expired. She passed the seat to her successor, a younger diplomat named Thomas Wright, who had none of her experience but all of her determination. On her last day, Arya stood before Earth's seat one final time. The chair looked ordinary now, no longer covered in warnings or protected by barriers. Just another piece of furniture in a governmental chamber, but she knew the truth. The seat would always be different. It would always carry the weight of history, the memory of fear, the reminder that predators and prey were not meant to govern together. They were doing it anyway. As Arya prepared to return to Earth, Marcus found her in the observation deck overlooking the new council station. They watched ships from 1,000 worlds coming and going, conducting the business of galactic civilization. "Do you think it will last?" he asked. "This arrangement we have built?" "I think it will last until the next crisis," Arya replied honestly. "And then we will have to prove ourselves all over again. Show that we can be trusted with power. Show that predators can choose not to hunt." "If that sounds exhausting, it is. But it is better than the alternatives." She smiled slightly. Kane was right. We will never be loved, but we can be respected, we can be valued. We can be essential. And if the galaxy decides someday that they no longer need us? Arya thought about the empty seat, maintained for 5 centuries as a symbol of fear. She thought about the sacrifices made, the colonies lost, the terrible calculations required for survival. "Then we will deal with that when it comes," she said. "But until that day, Earth's seat will remain occupied, not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as partners in the impossible task of making civilization work." She left the observation deck and boarded her transport home. Behind her, the council continued its work. Debates raged. Alliances shifted. The galaxy conducted its messy, complicated business. And in the chamber, Earth's seat remained filled. No longer empty, no longer isolated, but still different, still marked by the truth that everyone knew but few spoke aloud. Predators and prey were not meant to coexist, they were doing it anyway. And somehow, impossibly, it was working. The galaxy would never stop being afraid of humanity. The prey response was too deeply ingrained, too fundamental to override completely, but fear could be managed. Distance could be bridged. Trust could be built, one difficult decision at a time. Earth's seat was always empty, the old saying went, because the reason terrifies the ant. Our galaxy da, but now the galaxy knew the full truth. The seat was empty because of what humanity represented. The capacity for violence combined with the choice for restraint. The ability to see through lies combined with the wisdom to speak truth carefully. The instinct to hunt combined with the decision to protect. The galaxy feared humanity not because of what humans were, but because of what they could choose to become. And every day that choice was made correctly, every decision that prioritized cooperation over domination, every moment that predators chose to guard rather than hunt, the galaxy learned a little more that perhaps the fear was not the whole story, perhaps there was room for something else. Hope. The most dangerous prey animal was not the one that ran. It was the one that turned to face the predator and said, "We do not have to be enemies." And the most dangerous predator was not the one that hunted. It was the one that heard those words and chose to listen. Earth's seat would never be easy. It would always carry weight. It would always demand sacrifice, but it would remain filled. Because in the end, that was what humanity had always done best, finding the impossible solution, making the hard choice, surviving despite everything that said survival was impossible, and proving, one day at a time, that even the most fundamental truths of nature could change when we met necessity. The galaxy would never stop being terrified. Humanity would never stop being what they were, but together, impossibly, they would survive, and that would have to be enough.